Section 1 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Carroll. How doth the little crocodile? How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishes in with gently smiling jaws. End of Section 1. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 2 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. You are old, Father William. You are old, Father William, the young man said, and your hair has become very white. And yet you incessantly stand on your head. Do you think at your age it is right? In my youth, Father William replied to his son, I feared it might injure the brain. But now that I'm perfectly sure I have none, why I do it again and again. You are old, said the youth, as I mentioned before, and have grown most uncommonly fat. Yet you turned a back somersault in at the door. Pray, what is the reason of that? In my youth, said the sage, as he shook his grey locks, I kept all my limbs very supple. By the use of this ointment, 1 shilling the box. Allow me to sell you a couple. You are old, said the youth, and your jaws are too weak for anything tougher than suet. Yet you finished the goose with the bones in the beak. Pray, how did you manage to do it? In my youth, said his father, I took to the law and argued each case with my wife, and the muscular strength which it gave to my jaw has lasted the rest of my life. You are old, said the youth. One would hardly suppose that your eye was as steady as ever, yet you balance an eel on the end of your nose. What made you so awfully clever? I have answered 3 questions, and that is enough, said his father. Don't give yourself airs. Do you think I can listen all day to such stuff? Be off, or I'll kick you downstairs. End of Section 2. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 3 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat. Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at. Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. End of Section 3. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 4 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Pig and Pepper. Speak roughly to your little boy, and beat him when he sneezes. He only does it to annoy, because he knows it teases. Wow, wow, wow. I speak severely to my boy. I beat him when he sneezes, for he can thoroughly enjoy the pepper when he pleases. Wow, wow, wow. End of Section 4. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 5 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Lobster Quadrille. Will you walk a little faster, said a whiting to a snail. There's a porpoise close behind us, and he's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters and the turtles all advance. They are waiting on the shingle. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? You can really have no notion how delightful it will be when they take us up and throw us with the lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied, too far, and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting kindly, but he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not join the dance. What matters it how far we go? His scaly friend replied. There is another shore, you know, upon the other side. The further off from England, the nearer is to France. Then turn not pale, beloved snail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? Will you, won't you, won't you join the dance? End of section 5. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 6 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 'Tis the voice of the lobster. 'Tis the voice of the lobster, I heard him declare. You have baked me too brown, I must sugar my hair. As a duck with its eyelids, so he with his nose trims his belt and his buttons, and turns out his toes. End of section 6. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 7 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Beautiful Soup. Beautiful soup, so rich and green, waiting in a hot tureen. Who for such dainties would not stoop? Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Soup of the evening, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup. Beautiful soup. Soup of the evening. Beautiful, beautiful soup. Beautiful soup, who cares for fish, game, or any other dish? Who would not give all else for any worth only of beautiful soup? Pennyworth only of beautiful soup. Beautiful soup. Beautiful soup. Soup of the evening. Beautiful, beautiful soup. End of section 7. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 8 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Queen of Hearts. The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts, all on a summer day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts, and took them quite away. End of section 8. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 9 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Who Stole the Tarts? They told me you had been to her, and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone, we know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her 1, they gave him 2, you gave us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free, exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret kept from all the rest, between yourself and me. End of section 9. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 10 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Jabberwocky. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All whimsy were the borough groves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the mansome foe he sought. So rested he by the Tumtum tree, and stood awhile in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh, Callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All whimsy were the boro groves, and the mome raths outgrabe. End of section 10. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 11 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Tweedledum and Tweedledee agreed to have a battle, for Tweedledum said Tweedledee had spoiled his nice new rattle. Just then flew down a monstrous crow, as black as a tar barrel, which frightened both the heroes so, they quite forgot their quarrel. End of section 11. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 12 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Walrus and the Carpenter. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might. He did his very best to make the billows smooth and bright. And this was odd, because it was the middle of the night. The moon was shining sulkily, because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The sea was wet as wet could be, the sands were dry as dry. You could not see a cloud because no cloud was in the sky. No birds were flying overhead, there were no birds to fly. The Walrus and the Carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If this were only cleared away, they said, it would be grand. If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the Walrus said, that they could get it clear? I doubt it, said the Carpenter, and shed a bitter tear. O oysters, come and walk with us, the Walrus did beseech. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk, along the briny beach. We cannot do with more than 4, to give a hand to each. The eldest oyster looked at him, but never a word he said. The eldest oyster winked his eye, and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for the treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces washed, their shoes were clean and neat. And this was odd, because, you know, they hadn't any feet. 4 other oysters followed them, and yet another 4. And thick and fast they came at last, and more and more and more, all hopping through the frothy waves and scrambling to the shore. The Walrus and the Carpenter walked on a mile or so, and then they rested on a rock, conveniently low, and all the little oysters stood and waited in a row. The time has come, the Walrus said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. But wait a bit, the oysters cried, before we have our chat, for some of us are out of breath, and all of us are fat. No hurry, said the Carpenter. They thanked him much for that. "A loaf of bread," the walrus said, "is chiefly what we need. Pepper and vinegar, besides, are very good indeed. Now, if you're ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed." "But not on us," the oysters cried, turning a little blue. "After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do." "The night is fine," the walrus said. "Do you admire the view?" "It was so kind of you to come, and you are very nice." The carpenter said nothing, but "Cut us another slice." "I wish you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice." "It seems a shame," the walrus said, "to play them such a trick, after we've brought them out so far, and made them trot so quick." The carpenter said nothing, but "The butter's spread too thick." "I weep for you," the walrus said. "I deeply sympathize." With sobs and tears he sorted out those of the largest size, holding his pocket handkerchief before his streaming eyes. "O oysters," said the carpenter, "you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again?" But answer came there none, and this was scarcely odd, because they'd eaten every one. End of section 12. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 13 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty in his place again. End of section 13. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 14 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Message to the Fish. In winter, when the fields are white, I sing this song for your delight. In spring, when woods are getting green, I'll try and tell you what I mean. In summer, when the days are long, perhaps you'll understand the song. In autumn, when the leaves are brown, take pen and ink and write it down. I sent a message to the fish. I told them, this is what I wish. The little fishes of the sea, they sent an answer back to me. The little fishes' answer was, we cannot do it, sir, because. I sent to them again to say, it will be better to obey. The fishes answered with a grin, why, what a temper you are in. I told them once, I told them twice, they would not listen to advice. I took a kettle large and new, fit for the deed I had to do. My heart went hop, my heart went thump, I filled the kettle at the pump. Then someone came to me and said, the little fishes are in bed. I said to him, I said it plain, then you must wake them up again. I said it very loud and clear, I went and shouted in his ear. But he was very stiff and proud, he said, you needn't shout so loud. And he was very proud and stiff, he said, I'd go and wake them if. I took a corkscrew from the shelf, I went to wake them up myself, and when I found the door was locked, I pulled and pushed and kicked and knocked, and when I found the door was shut, I tried to turn the handle, but. End of section 14. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 15 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Lion and the Unicorn. The lion and the unicorn were fighting for the crown. The lion beat the unicorn all round the town. Some gave them white bread, some gave them brown, some gave them plum cake, and drummed them out of town. End of section 15. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 16 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking-Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Aged Man. I'll tell thee everything I can, there's little to relate. I saw an aged man, a-sitting on a gate. Who are you, aged man? I said, and how is it you live? And his answer trickled through my head, like water through a sieve. He said, I look for butterflies that sleep among the wheat. I make them into mutton pies, and sell them in the street. I sell them on to men, he said, who sail on stormy seas. And that's the way I get my bread, a trifle, if you please. But I was thinking of a plan to dye one's whiskers green, and always use so large a fan that they should not be seen. So having no reply to give to what the old man said, I cried, Come tell me how you live, and thumped him on the head. His accents mild took up the tale. He said, I go my ways, and when I find a mountain rill, I set it in a blaze. And thence they make a stuff they call Rowland's Macassar oil, yet 2d halfpenny is all they give me for my toil. To feed oneself on batter, and so go on from day to day, getting a little fatter. I shook him well from side to side, until his face was blue. Come tell me how you live, I cried, and what it is you do. He said, I hunt for haddock's eyes among the heather bright, and work them into waistcoat buttons in the silent night. And these I do not sell for gold, or coin of silvery shine, but for a copper halfpenny, and that will purchase 9. I sometimes dig for buttered rolls, or set limed twigs for crabs. I sometimes search the grassy knolls for wheels of hansom cabs. And that's the way, he gave a wink, by which I get my wealth. And very gladly will I drink your honour's noble health. I heard him then, for I had just completed my design, to keep the Menai bridge from rust, by boiling it in wine. I thanked him much for telling me the way he got his wealth, but chiefly for his wish that he might drink my noble health. And now, if ever by chance I put my fingers into glue, or madly squeeze a right-hand foot into a left-hand shoe, or if I drop upon my toe a very heavy weight, I weep, for it reminds me so of that old man I used to know, whose look was mild, whose speech was slow, whose hair was whiter than the snow, whose face was very like a crow, with eyes like cinders all aglow, who seemed distracted with his woe, who rocked his body to and fro, and muttered mumblingly and low, as if his mouth were full of dough, who snorted like a buffalo, that summer evening long ago, a-sitting on a gate. End of section 16. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 17 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking-Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Queen Alice. To the looking-glass world it was Alice that said, I've a sceptre in hand, I've a crown on my head. Let the looking-glass creatures, whatever they be, come and dine with the Red Queen, the White Queen, and me. Then fill up the glasses as quick as you can, and sprinkle the table with buttons and bran. Put cats in the coffee and mice in the tea, and welcome Queen Alice with 30 times 3. O looking-glass creatures, quoth Alice, draw near. 'Tis an honour to see me, a favour to hear. 'Tis a privilege high to have dinner and tea, along with the Red Queen, the White Queen, and me. Then fill up the glasses with treacle and ink, or anything else that is pleasant to drink. Mix sand with the cider and wool with the wine, and welcome Queen Alice with 90 times 9. End of section 17. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 18 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Fish Riddle. First, the fish must be caught. That is easy. A baby, I think, could have caught it. Next, the fish must be bought. That is easy. A penny, I think, would have bought it. Now cook me the fish. That is easy, and will not take more than a minute. Let it lie in a dish. That is easy, because it already is in it. Bring it here, let me sup. It is easy to set such a dish on the table. Take the dish cover up. Ah, that is so hard that I fear I am unable, for it holds it like glue, holds the lid to the dish while it lies in the middle. Which is easiest to do? Undish cover the fish, or dish cover the riddle? End of section 18. Recording by Evan Smith. Section 19 of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Hush-a-bye, lady. Hush-a-bye, lady, in Alice's lap. Tell the feast's ready, we've time for a nap. When the feast's over, we'll go to the ball. Red Queen and White Queen, and Alice and all. End of section 19. Recording by Evan Smith. End of Songs from Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll.